Thank you all so much for coming this evening. We got a great crowd. Thanks very much. Yeah, you and me both. All right, I'll speak a little more loudly. My name is Tim Staley. I'm the executive director of the Library Foundation. Thanks again, everybody, for coming out for this very exciting book launch. We're always excited to work with the UT Press, and particularly, we love to partner with them on such an exciting publication. I was here in the 90s in Austin, not doing much of anything in particular, but going to Emo's and the Electric Lounge and the Blue Flamingo and Liberty Lunch and checking out 16 Deluxe and all that. So the details are a little fuzzy, admittedly, but as best I can recall, it was a blast. So I really appreciate the authors coming out with this book. It reminded me, wow, I had so much fun back in Austin in the 90s. So thank you all very much. And I will leave the honor of introducing our authors, appropriately enough, to the director of the UT Press, Robert Devens. Robert?
Thanks, everybody. I'm actually going to hand the honors of introducing the authors to Casey Kittrell, who is our music editor, our editor-in-chief, and worked with these authors on this great book. I'm just here to say thank you to you all for coming out. Thanks to the authors for doing this wonderful book. And, an event like this means so much to us because we are really a community organization, and this represents the fruition of several really meaningful partnerships for us. One, of course, is with Tim and the Library Foundation, wonderful partners. Another is with the Leberman Foundation, which has funded the author series that this is a part of. And finally, with our awesome friends at Book People, who sell an awful lot of our books at events like this and in their stores. So thanks to all of them. I'm going to bring up now Casey Kittrell. As I said, he is our editor-in-chief and our music editor. And if you love our music books, he had a hand in whatever book it is you're thinking of. He's one of the best. Casey.
I can just hold it. Can you all hear me? Thank you. Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Library Foundation. Thank you, people, for coming out. I do have the honor of introducing tonight's punks here in the public library, the punkest place in Austin. Here with your scholarly publisher, the punkest press west of the Mississippi. We do have a book coming next season, I will say, Chuco Punk, about the punk scene in El Paso in the 90s. We have Why Patti Smith Matters, Revenge of the She-Punks. We have a pretty decent punk catalog for a scholarly publisher. I'm going to move on to the people tonight. Greg Beets is coming up. Actually, before I just say a couple sentences about Greg, can I get everybody to come to the stage? It feels a little dramatic if I sort of do them all, sort of one by one, and they make their way to the stage. Greg, Richard, Carrie, Laurie, will you come and sit in these nice chairs, please? Coming to you. All right, I will do the introductions here now. Greg Beets has been writing about music for more than 30 years, covering everyone from the American analog set to ZZ Top for publications such as the Austin Chronicle, Billboard, Uncut, Blurb, and Elmore. During the 1990s, he co-published Hey Hey Buffet, an award-winning fanzine about all you-can-eat buffets that fueled him as he skittered about some of Austin's grimiest stages for Cheeses, Noodle, and the Peen Beats. He now sings and manages handheld percussion for the Ron Titter Band. He is a proud graduate of UT Austin and the grandson of a Texas bookseller. Richard Whymark is also a proud graduate of UT Austin, as well as a writer, photographer, zine maker, and documentary filmmaker. And that's not all. In the 90s, he was a DJ at KVRX and in a noise band that played at the Blue Flamingo. He has won awards from the Austin Chronicle for Best Women's Radio Show Not Hosted by a Woman, and Best None of the Above Band. And he is at work on a documentary about the music and people featured in this book. Carrie Clark is a teacher at the Texas School for the Blind and Visually Impaired. Which, in addition to its good work as an educational institution, is, in her words, a petri dish for musicians, performers, and weirdos in the Austin underground scene. Carrie's band 16 Deluxe was a force in that scene, literally. As she says in the book, we prided ourselves on being so loud you could feel it. Thank you, Carrie. And I just want to shout out also Chepo Pena, who is in the audience tonight. He created the absolutely... I don't even have to tell them what you did. He created the absolutely fantastic collage that adorns the cover of this book. Thank you, Chepo. All right. And finally, our moderator tonight, Laurie Gallardo, really needs no introduction. Championing local musicians as a host and producer at KUT and KUTX for more than 20 years, a 7-time winner at the Austin Music Awards, a member of the Austin Music Hall of Fame, and a great friend to many of the artists in this book. She's also the host of a very cool and slightly spooky, seasonally podcast called SPF 1000 Vampire Sunscreen, in which she talks with guests about what darkness means to them. So, thank you, Laurie, Carrie, Richard, and Greg.
Are we ready?
Yeah.
I'm glad I remembered to turn my microphone on. Everyone, welcome, and it's so wonderful to see so many awesome people in here. Thank you for being here this evening. Damn, I love this book. When I received the final printing, the official copy, I read most of it that night. And there's a reason for that. I love the writing style. I love the way it's presented. And I was talking about this earlier with Richard. I really don't think you need to necessarily know everyone in the book, though it really is cool if you do, to actually appreciate it and enjoy it and to get an inside behind-the-scenes glimpse. And it's awesome, at times disturbing, which makes me so proud. So, we're going to begin at the beginning. Authors, I am going to tackle you right now. I hope you don't mind. And yes, I had to take notes because there's just so much to remember. Difficult to realize I only have this window allotted, this window of time to have such a great conversation. Thank you both for such a wonderful book. Remember, copies are available in the lobby. There's something that both of you have told me without mincing words. This is a celebration of the scene. This is not a tell-all book. And I certainly did not get that impression as I was kicking back and just enjoying it. I was even laughing at times. And yes, when I do recognize the names and the people, it's perfection. And it is more uplifting, even if some of the reactions that people had or things that they talked about are like, "Nyeh," or "oh, that bastard," whatever. It really, truly is uplifting. But there's one thing that's been lingering in the back of my mind. Thanks to Chepo Peña, I got to know A Curious Mix of People as a documentary. When was the turning point? I know that a lot of information had been gathered. How in the hell do you even organize something like this? And by the way, you've done it so well. This is just a lovely introduction, if you will. You could write a book about each of the chapters or pieces of the subject matter. Carrie could write a book about some stuff, let me tell you.
Yes, I could.
But when was that turning point?
It was when everyone got excited about this project, and thanks to Chepo knowing everyone, everyone would send us stuff, clips of videos and ephemera and zines and posters, and we were just getting so overwhelmed, honestly, to make one movie about this entire scene. There's no way we felt we could fit everything in. It honestly got a bit much for all of us to try and make a movie, although we're making a series now. And I was in...
Awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. I've actually submitted 2 of the episodes to South by, so we'll see what they say. It's the episodes of the Cavity, starring, and Blue Flamingo, which also takes in scenes at Sweatbox and Sound Exchange, because it's all part of the same thing, right? So it all got a bit overwhelming, and I thought, well, we could take these interviews and they read really well, and then COVID happened, and, everything just stopped. But it was a great opportunity for us to discover Zoom, and that you can interview people on Zoom and transcribe those interviews and put them in a book. And that's pretty much what Greg and I did during lockdown, is we Zoomed people all over the country.
Yeah, the book kind of leapfrogged over the documentary during that time, and I got to say it was really it was a nice thing to be doing in the middle of COVID, reconnecting with people. Those conversations were just like a bright light that happened, and it just so that was kind of what we did. But in terms of the organization, I did want to give Richard a little bit of credit for well, yeah, you deserve yeah, a little bit of credit, because I think when we first started talking about doing a book, I was kind of thinking of a real like a strictly chronological approach.
Oh, right.
Like I had a timeline mapped out. I think it's in the appendix. The timeline is actually still there.
Very detailed.
It is. It is, and it's a useful tool. But I think it was Richard who had this idea of like, well, maybe let's not do that. Let's kind of focus on each of these clubs. Let's focus on Sound Exchange, because that was such an integral part to all of this. It was kind of the salon through which all of the music scene sort of filtered through, and then also the media, and that goes all the way from the flyers and the zines on the street all the way up to non-commercial radio and the Austin Chronicle and zines and all those things. So that was kind of how that came about. I gotta give Richard credit, because I think I would have had a hard time organizing it otherwise. Just too much information.
It's too much.
And within that, though, just to point a spotlight at Chepo again.
Please do so often this evening.
Sorry, I'm getting the stare. He was always in the background, sort of guiding us quietly and in his own way, saying, well, what about this, and maybe do that. So, props to him as well for always being the Svengali, pulling our strings.
Thank you, Svengali. You are awesome. You've played in so many great bands. And that was kind of, I sort of directed that question at Richard, but thank you both, because that, just thinking about organizing that was overwhelming. I do have questions for each of you. Greg, this is actually something I'm stealing from Richard. A big shout out to Mark Fort, who has a great show on Co-op Radio. It's Ear Candy 2.0, and I was listening to his recent interview with Richard and Greg, and very thoughtfully, Richard, you had a question that you posed to Greg, and I have been thinking about this like, oh my gosh, that's right. Greg, I wanted to ask you, how does it feel to first, having played in so many of these bands, or like playing in bands, period, and being in the scene, how did it feel to step outside of that and look at it from the outside in to write this book?
That is a good question, because I mean, I think during the entire time that I was playing in bands, I was also covering music for the Chronicle, and I gotta tip my hat to the Chronicle for even letting me do that, because just having gotten out of journalism school, it was like you can't be part of the scene.
Can't do that, yeah.
You can't be part of what it is you're covering. That's like a city councilman can't write for the Austin American Statesman. That's just not done. It's unethical. And but there really was no money changing hands, not much or anything like that. There was no real grease, so to speak. And so it really was in the spirit of being involved in one way or another. And so I mean, I talk a lot about how the 90s were sort of a jumping off from the 80s, and I've said this before, but the 80s, and when we look at Austin and the punk rock scene that was going on at that time here, I think both creatively and artistically and ethically, we kind of all looked to bands like the Big Boys that were telling you, go start your own band, go participate. If something isn't the way you like it, go do something.
Do it yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's how that's what I was doing the whole time. And of course, as the 90s started to recede, and Austin started becoming a bigger city, the timber of the town, so to speak, the culture started to change. I mean, I did get the sense that the 90s were, I don't want to say forgotten, but sort of like glossed over a little bit. And, Michael Corcoran, who has always been one of my favorite writers, I think he says the summer of 1999 was the end of the 80s in Austin.
Nice.
And,
nice.
So it actually seemed like it was it was kind of a sentinel time in a lot of ways, and things were changing and things were evolving, and so going back and putting that all together was work, but it was totally a labor of love. It was just pleasant to go back and remember all these bands and remember all these fanzines and all the poster artists and all the people who ran the clubs and all that stuff. So I kind of just fell right back into it, doing what I did before, which was just trying to be involved.
Exactly. And it's like opening the floodgates, really. The good floodgates. Or in some cases, maybe not always good.
It was mostly good.
Mostly good.
Mostly good.
Yeah.
I think the one thing about it is, and this was, there was so much going on back then that, we didn't cover everything. There are some things, I mean, I'm still hearing stories. There's like a woodwork effect now. I mean, and I'll be talking to somebody and hear a story about something that happened, or some fact that they didn't know before.
That'll go in the podcast.
Yeah. So I knew I knew we wouldn't get everything, and we're going to keep working on what we didn't get, but we wanted to at least kind of give kind of build a house that showed what it was like, what it felt like. So hopefully, if we succeeded at all, it's creating it's capturing the vibe of how things were and how things were different, maybe how things are still the same in some ways.
I was going to say you definitely captured the vibe. And again, I have to emphasize, you don't have to know everybody or know as you say, the cast of characters in the book. It is just such a great read. You're on this adventure. There are lovely, I don't want to call them introductions, but they really are. In each chapter, it's like, this is this chapter, and there's this, really is.
I'm an idiot. Because basically, this book started out as just the interviews, right?
Yeah.
Just like Please Kill Me, something like that. That was the original idea. And because Greg's a great journalist, I asked him to write maybe a sentence or two to introduce each chapter. And he would send a paragraph and maybe two. And I thought, oh, this is amazing writing. Isn't his, I mean, his writing's just fantastic,
Yeah.
right?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
He would be always down at the library doing research and making sure every date and every fact was correct, because it's important. Like, we were having fun and all that, but this is very important to get this right. And so that's why the introductions are like, that's the real history.
Yeah.
Right, is what Greg wrote. It's amazing.
I was going to say summary, like a cool summary, but perfect. Thanks, Greg. Sir, you are a badass. There's just so much to talk about. I'm trying to narrow it down. But Carrie,
Yes.
as I was reading the book, you know, and again, full disclosure, this is something that Richard very, very succinctly pointed out. And yes, I did notice this. You do have to understand, as awesome as this book is, and I love it, in Richard's own words, it is two white guys writing about this history. Very important. You do have to acknowledge that. And what I was thinking about was my own experiences as a woman in any music scene. I came from El Paso, Texas, and hey, and thank you, baby. But you know, hearing musicians share their stories, reading about what women had to say in this book, that, again, I was like, whoa, okay, I'm making this connection right here. And so, Carrie, I know that you have your own stories to share. You don't have to be specific, but I was thinking about you. I was like, you know, Carrie's our special guest tonight. I mean, again, we could have an entire panel, just me and Carrie going, so, Carrie, tell me about that one night where that damn guy...
I don't remember.
Yeah. You don't have to, but, you know, I get it. It's just the general experience. Like, going on tour was one thing that I wanted to ask you about, because here I did read from several of the people in the book. They were like, you know what? Yeah, I was my own badass. We went and did our thing. We made our own band. You know, it wasn't like the women were just sitting around or being the girlfriends. They made their bands, you know? I don't want to list everybody because we'll be here all night. And I think that's where I'm going with this, Carrie. You know, your experience, you know, it was like this here in Austin, but then it would be a different story when you went on tour.
It was entirely different leaving Austin. So being in Austin as a fan, I think I said, I'm a super fan that just found myself in the middle of everything, which was awesome and also disconcerting. But as a fan, as a woman, it was a much friendlier scene to be in than, I mean, I went to Houston, I went to Dallas to see shows, and it just wasn't the same. There were a lot of white dudes being really aggro.
Being super aggro.
And the Austin scene was more like a bunch of weirdos being super weirdo. And it was just ultimately really, really friendly.
Yeah.
And it's weird to think about, what's the experience of being a woman in a band? I think that whole time in the 90s, I missed the Riot Girl train, right?
Yeah, yeah.
That was a little bit afterwards, and I don't know, it was a thing where it's like, if I'm gonna be really girly and be at the front of a band, then it's like, I wasn't legit. So on purpose, I'm just like, okay, I'm just gonna be a boy and playing this.
Yeah.
But that's also a lie, right?
Yeah.
And so, it was just really interesting. So I would, be this little rock and roll they, them running around Austin. And leaving Austin very quickly, it's like, okay, you're a girl. So, I don't know. It's one thing that I loved about the scene here.
All right.
Didn't you say you almost became Gwen Stefani? Didn't a label want to turn you into?
Oh my God! There were at the time when 16 Deluxe was getting courted by every label in the book, because it's like, who can we it's the next Nirvana or the next whatever. And yeah, I think one of the offers was, hey, we'll sign you guys, but we get to decide what Carrie wears, and we get to decide what her hair looks like, and we get to decide all of these things about image. And so, yeah.
No.
We said, no.
The hell with that. Thank you for enlightening me about that experience. I had no idea.
There were a lot of weird ones. Many.
Like you say, I don't remember all of them, but that's cool. That's cool. So, this book, I'm overwhelmed because there are some things, obviously, that I did know about and that I didn't. Again, I got here just after the fact in 2002. So I was very excited to dig into this book because this was the stuff of legends. We heard, in El Paso, we heard about Cavity, or at least I did. Dear God, I was too terrified to even venture there. Obviously, emos. Heard a little bit about Hole in the Wall. Did not know about Chances or Blue Flamingo. That was beautiful and awesome for me. That was a discovery for me, and I would like to know, again, you could write books about each of those places, I mean, and talk about knowing what to include. I think this was wonderful that you included those.
For me, Blue Flamingo, this just personally ties us back to KTSB and KVRX. I think Steve Bishop's here, and Robert Zimmer might be here.
There's Steve
and
Bishop.
Hey, hello.
Yay.
So these guys were very much integral to KTSB and KVRX, which is the university student radio station, which I think is kind of how Greg and I both got into this whole scene. And KVRX would have Monday night at the Blue Flamingo, which was a cross-dressing punk bar. So naturally, that's where we do our shows. And during the day, it was this wonderful cross-dressing, but maybe, a little darker bar. And then, like maybe 7 o'clock, we'd all load in our gear to start playing, and there'd be this intermingling of everyone. And it was just beautiful. It's on the corner of 7th and Red River, if you're ever downtown. It's the chess club now. But to me, that was my favorite place to go. It was just wonderful.
I don't think we could talk about the Blue Flamingo without acknowledging Miss Laura.
Thank you.
I know. It's so. So Chepo got in touch with Miss Laura for us to interview her, and she was too shy to go on camera. But we got this wonderful sound recording of her talking about the Blue Flamingo and the other venues that she ran around town. Anyway. Sadly, we only learned recently that she passed away a few years ago. But I had kept in touch with her at all the care homes that she'd been in. But, yeah, she was amazing, right?
She was very, very supportive of the bands. I mean, and the Cavity was very supportive of this new group of bands that had come up. There was at the time when the '90s first dawned, the Cannibal Club was kind of the main place, and that was a great club. They had great touring shows. They had great local shows. They always got the local bands to open for the touring bands, but there was so much going on at that time that the Cannibal couldn't possibly present it all. And then here comes the Cavity with
Here he comes.
Starring.
Where is Starrin?
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah. Jimmy Bradshaw and Dave Herman, rest in peace. Those guys just lit it up and provided a place for all of these bands to kind of germinate
And live.
and live, and in some cases actually literally live. Yeah. So that was, and then when the Cavity closed, the Cavity was around for a couple of years. Miss Laura kind of took a lot of those bands in. And I don't think the Blue Flamingo was necessarily, she wasn't thinking, oh, well, I'm going to open a club that's going to be a cross-dressing bar by day and a punk rock club by night. It was really just, it was happenstance. It was the fact that the proximity of being right next to the Cavity and knowing that there was this now a gap in terms of where these bands could play. And she gave them a home. And I mean, I think bands like the Motards and the Chumps,
The Inhalants as well.
Inhalants,
The Fuck Emos.
Stratford. Yeah, all of these bands she took them all in, and she was very, just a very, just warm, loving personality, and at the same time, she didn't take no mess.
No, absolutely. When we interviewed John Motard, he loved Miss Laurie. He said she was just amazing to his band. So.
Extra
Sorry, you asked about chances as well.
Yes, I did. Yes.
See, so this is a difficult thing, right?
Yes.
Although Greg's band played there and we would go there, it started out as a lesbian bar, right? And it had blackout windows. And I'm sorry, I'm sort of talking on behalf of someone else, kind of. But it had blackout windows, and they decided to remove the blackout and become public and open, and here we are. And apparently, that split the clientele. The clientele wanted to stay safe because it was not a safe time to be gay in the 80s in Texas. But that then opened it to everyone. And the guys got invited to play a little bit. And I'm having a real hard time talking about this because this isn't really for us to say.
It's
Of course.
not, but I'm going to go. I'm sure a lot
We're
of
going
you
to
I'm
anyway.
sure a lot of you folks out there know Gretchen Phillips, and hopefully some of you are going
Gretchen
to see
Phillips,
Joy
hell
a
yeah.
little bit later. We'll see them earlier in the week. But Gretchen, we interviewed her and talked to her a little bit about chances. And I know one of the things she said to me was like, it was like the curtains went up, and it was like this is a lesbian bar, and we're having a great time, and if you're straight and you're cool, you're invited. And so Sandra Martinez, who is the owner of Chances, later went on to start Top Drawer, the thrift store, which is a rockin' good place as well. I think she did have kind of a vision for this being a place where people could come together, and boy, that club is having benefits like every other week. I mean, they did benefits for Artcore Fanzine and for Reproductive Choice and for AIDS Services of Austin. All of these places were having benefits at Chances. And it was a beautiful setting, too. It's where Sheriff Charlie's is now. There's this beautiful limestone cliff that if the weather was good, you get to play outdoors. But it was in effect what it was is that, the lesbians who had this club were cool enough to let us in. And we as, kind of young straight men, got to learn something. And
I should hope so.
nothing but gratitude for that. I mean, it's just, we got, and I mean, I talk about this just in general, just, being able to rub shoulders with folks like Gretchen and really a lot of the women in the scene. I mean, you learn stuff. You learn, like what Carrie was just saying about, about you're going to get signed, and it's like, well, and they're going to tell you what to wear. I mean, and I'm sure you got
That wouldn't happen to God. Well, I don't know. Maybe Brant Bingaman. We would ask Brant to.
He's not going to wear.
They would. They would tell Chris Burns to wear something.
Tell Chris what not to wear.
I did want to say something about Chances. It's funny. So
Yeah.
shout out to my bandmates over there. Hi, Jeff Kopis.
Yeah.
Chance Steven. Thanks for coming, y'all. Jeff and I were having a conversation a few months back and talking about how Chances and the Cavity and Blue Flamingo were really important because you had to have a certain level of cred before you could play emos. You had to have a certain level of cred before you could play Cannibal Club or wherever Ed Hall was playing,
Right?
Right? You had to be that big. And Chances and Cavity and Blue Flamingo were like, bands with training wheels. And then you got to prove yourself there. And so it was just, it was open in a lot of ways. It was just like, yeah, come on, you got a band, come and play here. And so Chances was one of those places that allowed bands to develop and allowed bands to say, hey, we really are good. Can we come play your rock club? So, yeah.
So cool. And now earlier we made reference to KVRX. Excuse me, I keep saying the wrong call letters because I only know it as KVRX. There's some really important chapters in here covering not only radio, but studios like Sweatbox. We also, and I mentioned Dave Pruitt. There is a chapter dedicated to TV. Yeah, Dave Pruitt.
Raw time.
Just to me, that was crucial to cover this media side. And yes, that includes zines, that includes the writers of these publications. And you gave fair time to the insert that was in the Statesman. I never read that as excellent. I saw it as excellent. It was so interesting, though, that everybody, you gave an example of what was going on. I really appreciated that. And
But sorry to interrupt, but
no, please interrupt. I invite you to interrupt.
Mark was a writer for them. Mark Ford
I know.
Over there.
I
think it was called Onward or something like that, right?
It was on yeah.
Excel. Onward to the Weekend. They were trying to compete with the Chronicle, right?
Yes.
But the first article, full front page,
Fuck emos.
full feature article was the fuck emos.
Yeah.
How do you do that in a family newspaper like the Statesman?
It was brilliant. It was brilliant maneuver. I have a friend, when I read this, I recalled that I have a friend who actually kept that article because it was so awesome. And again, it was fuck emos, so hey, in a general publication, woo! But they're great, so that only made sense to me. I'm like, why not? I was elated to find out about that, and again, this is a great primer, gentlemen, even for people who are not really familiar with the scene at all. You read about everything, and it just kind of blows my mind that you were able to pull in so much, and I know you have more to share. I look forward to that. Is there going to be another book? I mean, how on earth would you? No, are you mad? No, it's just a lot.
This one took 12 years.
It's a lot. That's why I'm asking. It's just a lot that you had to pull together.
You got me thinking, though, about the Chronicle and the zines and all that. There was something interesting when we were talking to the zine writers. So Greg was a zine writer and wrote for the Chronicle, and there's a lot of other people like that. Mm-hmm. I didn't realize how, especially maybe the folks at Sound Exchange, Roger, correct me if I'm wrong, but being in the Chronicle was uncool to a certain degree. Right. But I was with Rebecca or, watching 16 Deluxe grow. I thought it was great. If you saw 16 Deluxe in the Chronicle, was that cool or not?
I think the great colliding of it being great and it being not cool was we were on the cover, I think it was after Warner Brothers, and on the pressing on the side, it said Shit Stains Deluxe on the side. So it's like we had our moment of woo, but then there was also
That actually
keeping you humble.
It's a good illustration, though, of the vibe at the time. I mean, that's one of the things I wanted to talk about is that at the time there was a real prejudice against anybody becoming too successful, and that was kind of almost like a generational thing, at least for
absolutely a generational thing. That means you sold out was the term.
Out. Yeah,
they sold out.
Having lots. It's like. We just want to keep you for ourselves, and we just want to, we want the cool people to like this. But if you become too big, that's a problem. That's a problematic thing, and it was a hard thing for, the bands that were good and did get successful to, to deal with, because these be like, sometimes it'd be like your friends kind of ragging on you about stuff like that,
or even ragging on you for wanting to stay in a Motel 6.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
oh, yes,
there was also that. I told you that story out there.
Oh, yes, you did, but it would be great if you shared a bit of that.
Well, okay, again, foggy memories. So this is how I remember it. So 16 Deluxe learned how to tour from the other trance bands, right? Our role models were Crust, the Cherubs, and Ed Hall, and this is how you tour, and it was disgusting. So gross. Jeff's van did not have air conditioning. It leaked oil. We had a loft built for our gear, which was essentially like a way to launch yourself straight through the window if you like stop too quickly. I'm not even gonna, I will talk about you lighting your farts, but I'm not gonna say who it is. But, so we were doing this, right? And it was just like, this is the only thing that we knew. This is how people tour. And at one point, it might have been with the Chronicle, I don't know, somebody was like, whoa, blah, 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 what's touring like? And I said, it's okay. It would be really nice if we could get to a place where I could sleep in a bed, where we could get a hotel room. And another band on trance where I won't name them. They're sweet. Very sweet people. But at the time, it was like they wrote a song about that, talking about how I was a sellout because I did not want to sleep next to guys lighting their farts in a stinky van. So,
I mean, excuse the hell out of you. For
but no, there was that prejudice of like, no, you don't want comfort, and I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Where did this come from? I guess Crust and the worms, the discomfort. We can talk about more discomfort.
Sure.
With the G.G. Allen show at the
Oh
Capitol.
yeah, G.G. Allen is mentioned in this lovely. I saw
Seemed like, right, the bands that began with S were doing well, right? Like Sincola, 16 Deluxe, and Spoon.
Yeah.
And they all got their own version of blowback. Like you're suddenly not cool because you're on Caroline, or Matador saw you at Blue Flamingo, or you're getting signed to Warner. I wasn't that cool. I did not understand why there was blowback. Like, we're supposed to be supporting these bands and playing them on the radio and writing about them and all that, and then suddenly when they achieve what we're trying to help them achieve, that's it. You must now stop. I did not get it, but anyway.
It was jealousy, I think.
Lift your bands up, in other words. I know. A little kind of a quote that I read from Roger Morgan, and this was about record labels, the chapter on record labels in the book, and I just loved this so much. I pored over it again and again. He said, we really are in a unique position here. You know, people working at Sound Exchange, there were these labels, like Bunkhouse, Rise Records, Unclean, I could go on and on and on. And they were working at Sound Exchange. And wasn't there a time where they were in this photo in Billboard magazine? Because it's like, look at these people working at Sound Exchange. By the way, they all have labels. It is a unique situation. I mean, how does that even, well, you know what? It's like we were saying earlier. You don't like what's going on? Get up and you do it yourself.
It was its own self-contained ecosystem. And that's sort of because this really was, the internet was around, but it wasn't around, really. It was...
Not really.
Basically, I think, there were some people using CompuServe. And then there were people like Paco Zandernathan in town doing Boing Boing. But it really seemed like this was stuff that was on the... It was on the fringe. It was stuff that was, not anything that was commonly being used. So for the local music scene here in Austin, and this was an isolated city at the time. The big bands wouldn't come through Austin. They'd come to Dallas or Houston or maybe even San Antonio. So it really was kind of like a place where you made your own fun, and bands would, you could be, all that in Austin and then drive down to Houston and play for, 15 people or something like that. It was a very,
As many as that.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was a very insular type of environment. So all these things kind of came along to support this new crop of bands. The Cavity opened, and then you had Craig Kuhn working at Sound Exchange, and he put out the 7-inch single by Pork.
Yeah.
A great three women band. If you've never heard them, go check them out. Sterling Morrison from the Velvet Underground was a fan, and then when Craig did that, all these other people were like, well, heck, I can start a label. I can get a 7-inch out, and pretty soon, by like 1993, 1994, there was a whole wall of local singles.
Yeah.
At Sound Exchange, and it was just a really kind of just remarkable thing that happened, that this ecosystem kind of just developed to kind of support all these new bands.
How exciting. That would have been a dream to me. I mean, by the time I got here, Sound Exchange was still here, but seeing something like that, especially if you're from out of town, you're like, I've never seen anything like this before, and you want to check it out, or at least I did.
There's still a bit of it still standing, like that much.
This much.
In fact, so I was down on South Congress today, right?
Yes.
And with the family, and I saw this. And this is pretty much what it's been reduced to, is a poorly printed Jeremiah the Frog on
Yes.
a very, very expensive water cup. This is Sound Exchange right here.
Yeah, that's about it.
Jesus. But at least they're saving the frog.
To my understanding, the building, while it was raised, I believe that particular wall has been preserved. I'm like, well, bless your heart. I mean, will this mean something for generations to come? I don't. So, let me try and wrap this up because we are running out of time. But again, it really is an extraordinary occasion here. Just one other thing that I wanted to remark on, in addition to the zines and the artwork, which I'm obsessed with. If anyone saved their stuff. I've seen some older 16 Deluxe posters. I'm like, oh my God, I would love that. I could go on and on about that. Were you able to, I know there's a picture of one, or an example of one of the posters, but would you ever consider showcasing more? I mean, to me, that is a feast for the eyes. I guess that would be another book.
I think there is I think it would be a great idea, if not necessarily for us or really anybody. I mean, the poster art that was going on in Austin at the time was remarkable. And of course, many people know about Frank Kozik, another rest in peace, unfortunately. I mean, but it wasn't just Frank. It was people like Lindsey Kuhn and Jason Austin. Jason did a ton of stuff, and I think if you really want to follow like the scene that we really write about in this book, you can look at Jason's catalog, and his catalog alone is sort of like the visual component to that.
Yeah.
And Lyman Hardy, who is a multi-talented individual, playing drums in Ed Hall and Pong, and Emmy-nominated sound designer now. But he also was a great poster artist.
And then the city made it illegal to put posters up.
Oh yes, it was. It was an absolute crime. People would get
$50
fined.
per poster?
It was
like that?
$500 that you would get fined. Or
500?
Yes.
Really?
It was, yes. Hello. No, it was a big deal, and some people got arrested as well. It's just ridiculous. We're putting up your show poster, and before long,
Well, we can't end on that.
Oh.
Are we allowed to do Q&A? Do we have time?
Well, what I was going to say, yes, we're doing a Q&A in just a moment, but I did want to say another shout out to Miss Laura, because when I saw the title, A Curious Mix of People, I thought that was all Richard Whymark because he's English. So Miss Laura, please forgive me wherever you are, represented by this wonderful title and this wonderful book. Everyone, thank you so much. Now we are. I want our panelists to stay here because we do have some time for questions, and I have someone who will be coming around. If you could raise your hand, please. We have someone right here. This awesome badass lady, Jen.
Hey, Jennifer.
Hey, y'all.
Hey.
Oh, my gosh. Super congratulations on the book. I've been enjoying it very much, of course, and have been following this project for a while. And I'm curious to ask you guys maybe where you did some research for this book, or where you found information.
really?
Besides, you did a lot of oral histories and you did a lot of documentation of the history that happened yourselves, but where else were there any places that you found anything?
Was there a particular library you went to, Greg?
Stand up and show this shirt to everybody.
Yeah!
Yeah, we did quite a bit at the Austin History Center.
When you say we, you mean you.
Yeah.
Greg was there all the time checking his facts. Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting because I mean, like even the Chronicle has a lot of their stuff digitized, but a lot of what we were looking at was going further back than they have digitized copies of it. So I'd go over to the History Center on a Saturday morning, and they would bring out the box with the yellowing original copies of the Chronicle from like 1990, 91, et cetera. And I think, Jennifer and I have talked about this a little bit, but it would be a good idea for someone to digitize those copies of the paper before they wither away to dust. And not just the copy itself, not just the articles, but the ads. The ads are amazing. I mean, the club ads, the ads for the restaurants. I mean, it's really is a portrait in time. So, yeah, no, there's a lot of this stuff that I have a pretty good memory, but I'm getting on up there, and a lot of this stuff I wouldn't have been able to find had it not been for being able to go back to the History Center. So, mad props to the library and the History Center.
Absolutely. All right, we have time for at least a couple more. If anyone has any questions. No? Really? Do you all know everything?
Well, everyone here did everything.
Ooh!
They
It's
know-
true! You were there.
It's like looking at the characters in the story. Hey, everyone's here.
Well, it is true.
Wonderful.
It's true. It is. You can see it was like a family reunion tonight.
Yeah.
And again, thank you all so much for being here this evening. This has been incredible. And again, let's hear it for our wonderful panelists, Carrie Clark, Greg Beets, and Richard Whymark.
And thank you to Laurie Gallardo.
Thank you, Laurie.
Thank you, Laurie.
Thank you so much for being here. Get a copy of the book, everyone. Tell your friends. Thank you for coming out, and good night.